to you live from Ireland's Crypto Coast. This is Crypto AM. Woo!
Thanks everyone. Thanks. Welcome to Crypto AM. This is a new show that we're going to be beaming out every couple of weeks to begin with, looking at everything crypto.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at cryptocurrencies and blockchain and the markets that they affect. I'm your co-host, Shauna Scott.
Yeah, I'm Ruben Godfrey, and yeah, a lot of that we'll be doing as well as ICOs, reviews, market reviews. So we'll be looking at all the different elements from everyone from global multinationals to local businesses and seeing how cryptocurrency and blockchain can affect your own business and your own life.
We've got a few really great reports today. And then later on in the show, we're going to have a panel with a couple of really great panelists, Nash from Crypto Cafe and Shane from Moyi Coffee.
So yeah, if you haven't guessed already, the theme of this week is going to be coffee. So we'll be looking at all the different elements and everything from supply chain all the way through to your buying your coffee for Ethereum or Bitcoin. Cool, so wanted to give a brief introduction about ourselves, I suppose, who we are and why we're here. Shauna, maybe you can kick off.
Yeah, I'm Shauna Scott. I'm a small business owner here in Dublin. I am very much going to be the voice of the non-expert. I'm really excited because I have like so many questions about crypto and blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, one of the reasons I was happy to get you involved, I guess, is that you had took the brave step of accepting cryptocurrency in your own business, which is huge for me. It shows a huge sort of belief or understanding of what it is and the acceptance. So for me, obviously, my name is Ruben Godfrey. Set up the Blockchain Association of Ireland a couple of years ago. Now we set up the Crypto Coast, which is trying to, again, bring more people into the space or open up the world of cryptocurrency for more people to be involved. And yeah, so here we are. Also on the team, you'll be meeting other people who are here in studio today. They'll introduce themselves. But we also have sending in reports, Kelsey Navin. So we understand that the knowledge around cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, blockchain technology is a huge variation. Even Fiona and myself are entry points into this crypto sphere. So this isn't going to be an explainer. You're not going to get everything you need to know about crypto. That's not the goal with this. Similar to Top Gear, the TV show, you don't need to know how an internal combustion engine works in order to know how to drive a car. And that's the same thing. We're not going to be giving you tech breakdowns of what a blockchain is. Largely, you don't need to know that. Shona, do you have any idea how blockchain works?
I have no idea. I have kind of like a very basic knowledge, but like you said, like you don't necessarily have to be an expert to understand like the concept of it.
Exactly. So we're going to be joining the dots a bit. Hopefully, by a few shows into this, you'll be gelling together your own knowledge. You'll be able to upskill what you know, and take the fear away from dealing with it. So you'll know more than the guy next to you in work. That's the idea. So yeah, it's going to be a packed show. Really looking forward to getting some insights and updates. So thanks for joining us. Now, and now we're going to do the news. So what's been in the news this week in relation to cryptocurrency? Shauna?
Well, my first story that I want to talk about today is Forbes reported earlier this week that hackers had hijacked Tesla's Amazon cloud account to mine cryptocurrency. And immediately I have questions.
There's a few. Other news, following the success of the Petro in Venezuela, the state-backed cryptocurrency, some other countries such as Iran have come out now also saying that they are interested in having a state-backed cryptocurrency.
One of my favorite stories of the last couple of months was 50 Cent realizing that he is a Bitcoin millionaire. Will we jump right into it then?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you want to talk about first when we talk about Tesla?
Well, yeah, so I mean, Tesla hack, it sounds a bit kind of scary.
Well, I kind of wanted to know how does that even, how is that even possible? Because it wasn't like a cloud account that was specifically for cryptocurrency. So how do you mine a cryptocurrency from something that isn't a cryptocurrency?
Yeah, like if I knew that, specifically.
Okay.
I wouldn't be sitting here. Okay, so what happened, I guess, is the way I read this story is that Tesla have an allocation in an Amazon web server farm. So they have a load of servers that are applying to crunching their own problems, but somebody's got in, or hackers got in, and have kind of leached off some of that processing power to mine cryptocurrency.
Okay.
That's usually what happens. It has happened in other instances. UFC famously, one of their last big pay-per-view events, I think it was the Mayweather McGregor fight actually, that clever people realised that some of their smart TV processing power had been applied to mining cryptocurrency. Again, it's pretty cool, but it's sort of stuff. There's opportunities there for people to kind of safeguard against that. So this is the growth. All the innovation will be going into to make sure that sort of stuff can't happen, I suppose, in the future. You may have heard about in Venezuela.
Yeah, you were saying to me earlier.
So yeah, they famously had gone through a period of crazy inflation. No shit, communist country. So funny enough, they've decided to go for a libertarian solution to a communist problem by doing an ICO and launching a cryptocurrency, state-backed cryptocurrency called Petro, and they're actually already planning a second one. So I guess it's working out in some way down there. But other countries now are getting on board. Iran have also announced that they want to do a cryptocurrency. So interesting thing that both Iran and Venezuela share is that they're actually not backed by the World Bank. So might be a trend there. I don't know. No central banking, a way to avoid central banks. But,
do you see like more countries catching on with this?
I think as more currency, well, I don't know, with any currency, any existing currency has a lifespan, and no currency has ever lasted forever. So as soon as they fall over, and they will, people, depends who you speak to, but I mean the dollar, if you speak to people, the dollar's on its last legs. It's a massive period of it's about to head into hyperinflation. Don't worry, it's not today. But it's, so if you look at the amount of money that's in circulation, currencies are going to start tipping over, and it's only natural then that they would use a cryptocurrency to reboot.
And would you see like more? Do you think there'll be more like nationalized cryptocurrencies, or do you think they'd be more within industries?
Again, I mean, sure. Look, that's the whole growth of cryptocurrency. Is I think it'll be potentially both. I think you'll have lots of cryptos beginning to speak to each other, and probably circumventing national currencies. I don't know if national currencies are necessary for that much longer.
The next one was my favorite crypto story from the last couple months, where the rapper 50 Cent realized that he was a Bitcoin millionaire. He'd released an album in 2014. I think he made something like $400,000 off of it and just like put it into, worth of Bitcoin. Like many of us just left it in his account and forgot about it.
Yep. And
then turned out he had something between $7 and $8.5 million worth of Bitcoin in there. And then when he was asked about it, he was just like, yeah, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. Happens to the best of us. Other stuff I've been looking at, you may have heard of Tezos, a huge ICO from last year. Very successful in terms of how much they raised. But there were some issues with it kind of straight away, and it looks like one of those issues may have exited the foundation in the last few days. There's been a change of personnel there at the very highest level, so hopefully things will start moving there again, because it's a hell of a lot of money tied up in that foundation, and it would be nice to see something positive happen for the strong community that it built up. Yeah, so big changes there. Okay, so other stuff that was interesting this week, Telegram, the communication, the kind of WhatsApp, the messaging app that's used almost ubiquitously in the ICO, in the crypto space for communication and team building, community management stuff. They launched an ICO that was kind of unusual in the last couple of weeks, and things kind of hit off. So I thought maybe James, you had
So I mean, it's funny as a group of community where they're all trying to build up a lot of different people inside of that community, and then all of the raise is currently being private. So the minimum allocation was $20 million. So the only people who are buying in are groups that are buying in with a minimum of $20 million.
It was like 880 million.
Yeah, 880 million raised so far, with a total cap of $2 billion is what they're aiming for.
So we all kind of thought that this year we'd see the first $1 billion ICO. That's already happened, has it? Or is it Telegram is the
I think Telegram's the closest.
Telegram's so it's so you're talking about a $2 billion ICO. That's tenfold on what was considered. Well, Tezos was what, 250, was it 250 million, and Tezos was the biggest at the time. So we're seeing sort of an exponential growth in the caps in the raises that these ICOs are putting together. So interesting times.
It's interesting as well because I think that for these companies that are raising a lot of money, there's a lot more downside for the average investor. So if you're raising $2 billion and they don't actually produce anything, it can fall a long way versus a company that raises $10 or $50 million.
Yeah. So there's people are kind of exploring a bit more about why they want to raise so much money, and with great wealth comes great responsibility. And you turn into a foundation, and you turn into all these things that you didn't want to be in the first place. So that's it for now. We've got more news, more updates later on the show. So we're going to be looking at the markets this week.
We're going to head over to Dr. Paul Ennis of Quinn UCD Business School and CoinDesk contributor.
Hi everybody, Dr. Paul J. Ennis here, your guide to the crypto markets here at Crypto AM. So I just want to begin by introducing my approach. So I'll be focusing on fundamentals as opposed to day trading, because more or less I believe that that's where the real gains can be made, that you need to think in long-term timeframes in effect. So you need to be looking at something minimum 6 months, ideally a few years. And so I'm going to bring you through some of the major cryptocurrencies, and I won't really be focusing on the smaller ones that are out there, because often they're just simply pump and dump schemes, that is organized groups who pick a coin and make it rally, and then they sell at a predetermined time, and then you're stuck holding some coin that nobody wants. So we're going to look at things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, and every week I'll introduce something a little bit left field. I think today will probably be Cardano, which is a favored coin of my own self. So when we look at the markets, we see that Bitcoin is looking relatively healthy from a long-term perspective again. It's currently at 9,700, so that's nice. We're not seeing any kind of major dip. We are seeing a small dip of 5%. And we have to keep in mind that a couple of weeks ago we were almost breaching down to 6,000 US dollars. And of course we all have this all-time high of 20,000 that we're comparing to, but this is Bitcoin, things can be pretty volatile. But for the last couple of weeks things are settling down quite nicely, and that's pretty much what I like to see. Now normally what that means is that there's no major news. At the moment in Bitcoin we simply have some technical innovations which have happened, which are going to solve the scaling debate, ideally. So things are just neutral, objective, nothing too crazy, nothing too negative, nothing too positive. So that's good, and I think that's probably going to be how things are for the next few weeks. These words, of course, will always haunt me because this is the crypto space, so anything can happen. So I would suggest here holding onto your Bitcoin and just waiting things out, waiting for some news. When we look at Ethereum, we find something that's very common, which is that Ethereum correlates or tracks the Bitcoin price quite closely very often. So if things are going well in Bitcoin, broadly speaking, they'll be going well in Ethereum as well. So that's good. If we see some kind of Bitcoin rally, your Ethereum should rally as well. So that's always good news. They're very, very close in that regard. Obviously, Ethereum is effectively Bitcoin's core competitor, the currency that really has a huge community. It's a real challenge to Bitcoin, especially when you compare it to some of the other options that are out there. Ripple is the centralized cryptocurrency, so their market is actually banks. So they're trying to effectively have partnerships with various financial institutions. Last week they've added a few more, so they got up to $1. It's coming down here a little bit, but broadly speaking, Ripple's looking good. I know a lot of people love Ripple. It's not a favorite of mine, but I can see the utility. There's obvious value to Ripple for banks. Bitcoin Cash is it's having a bit of a further dip, possibly due to the fact that the Bitcoin innovation that we've had this week, this is the Lightning Network and segregated witness, they effectively solved the problem that Bitcoin Cash was created to solve, which is, transaction fees being too high, needing bigger blocks. If you want to look into that, just look up the Bitcoin scaling debate. So that's not good news for Bitcoin Cash, but they've got a solid community. So I think, broadly speaking, they'll be okay. So nothing too dangerous there. If you got some free Bitcoin Cash with the Bitcoin hard fork, then just hold it and see how things go. With Litecoin, there was a fork as well, and this fork effectively meant that the new currency that was created was free if you owned Litecoin. So if you already had some, that was great, free money. But the rally that it had recently was built around that. Now that the fork has happened, it's kind of hard to say what exactly the real, value behind Litecoin is, except maybe as a test for some, technologies that Bitcoin has introduced. So I'm not always, I'm always a bit kind of so at Litecoin. Cardano is an interesting newcomer. So this was only created last year, in I think it's December. So what they're trying to do is learn from the mistakes of the past cryptocurrencies, and they're going to have a peer-reviewed project, which is basically an academic way of ensuring that things work well. So that's looking good. I would suggest, doing some research and seeing what you think of Cardano. Okay, so that pretty much covers all the majors. I have nothing much more to add except maybe have a look at things like Monero. So Monero is in the news because it's effectively being used for all kinds of criminal activities, but that means it does have a utility. So if you like a little bit of risk in your portfolio, then I'd suggest reading up on Monero. Okay, that's it. I'll talk to you all next week.
Thanks very much for that, Paul. Shona, any insights or anything you're going to invest in this week?
Ask me again in 2 more weeks.
Perfect. Well, over to Kelsey.
Hi, this is Kelsey checking in from Australia. My handle is @Khaleesi_crypto if you'd like to connect on Telegram. And today I'm checking in from the Sydney Startup Hub, the largest co-working space in Australia, for a panel event on Blockchain 101. So today we're going to be talking about what is blockchain, what's all the fuss about, all the buzz, how does it work, and how people can get involved if they're interested. So what's really exciting about this event today on Blockchain 101 is that the broader startup and tech scene is getting interested in cryptocurrency and blockchain technologies. So follow on for some highlights, some clips, and we'll see what we learn about Blockchain 101, guys, down from Australia. Or in the startup space. So that's definitely what Kenya's trying to do. They've done their raise in the ICO and now using that to build out a team, build out systems, develop a product, which is the services marketplace where you can go and use the coin in your everyday, and you don't have to be into crypto trading or anything else. If you just want to hire a graphic designer or get someone to build a website for you. So that's what we really need to see, is a lot of great companies being built off the back of these ICOs to kind of bring crypto into the mainstream so people can see how and why it's useful for them in their everyday. And if you haven't looked up Satoshi's Living Room, because no one mentioned it on their spend of cryptocurrency, then you definitely should. A few smiles. I hope that's been a useful update for you of something that's happening here in Australia. Continue to stay tuned with Crypto AM, and I'll be checking in from Oz as well as other locations around the world with what I see happening in crypto and blockchain. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much for that, guys. Very interesting. This show is all about coffee, as we said, so without any further ado, let's go meet our panel.
Thanks for coming, guys. This is exciting. Very first show, very first guest.
Yeah. Maybe we can start with just brief introductions. We got Shane and Nash. Shane, you kick off. Maybe explain who you are, where you're from, and I guess why you're here.
Yeah, sure. So I've brought Moi Coffee to Ireland along with Killian Stokes. So we're the first fair chain coffee company in the world. So we're trying to add more value in coffee producing countries beyond supporting a farmer to support a whole industry. And I suppose we're here today is because we've also set up the first coffee blockchain project in the world to trace the supply chain right through to your cup.
So we're probably all familiar with fair trade coffee and the concept behind that, fair chain. So how is that different, or how is that better, or how is it improving on fair trade?
Sure, so about 99.9% of coffee you've ever had is roasted in the West. So coffee producing countries, which are all developing countries, are exporting coffee beans as a commodity, which is then all the added value is taking place in Europe. So all the jobs, profits and income is being exported out of coffee producing countries, and we give them development aid in return. So we're about trade over aid, and we think you can have speciality, best coffee in the world and still do the roasting in Ethiopia. So last year about 85% of our coffee was roasted in Addis Ababa. There's 50 people supported there. So with Fair Chain it goes beyond supporting a farmer. It's about 3 times the income goes back, and well over 5 times as many jobs are in coffee producing countries.
That's great. And Nash, tell us a little bit about Crypto Cafe.
Yeah, so I started Crypto Cafe on the back of a very lucky streak of crypto investments. I haven't been in it long, actually. You know, crypto's been around for a long time. I've heard about it for a long time, but I've only gotten into it about maybe less than half a year now.
Okay.
And I got a bit lucky at one stage and decided, you know what, I'm going to do something with this money, and decided to look for a place. I found a place, have a cafe. What do I call it? Kind of hit me one day I was driving, and crypto and coffee kind of came together for me in my head, and that's what I did.
That's so great.
So, yeah.
It's interesting for me, I guess, the amount of startups that are in the space in blockchain and in the whole crypto sphere. Sort of, neither of you guys have actually been involved in an ICO, which is interesting for startups in the space. Shane, what's your understanding about cryptocurrency? You're coming at it from very different ends of the spectrum, right? I mean, obviously, Shane, you're in supply chain and talking about import, export. Nash, you're on the retail side of things. But you accept crypto in your environment or in your cafe, right?
Yes, that's right. We're accepting, at the moment, I'm only accepting Litecoin and Ethereum to keep it simple. But in the future, once we get a more polished payment point of sale system, I'll look towards changing that.
Yeah, it was my first ever transaction in Ireland was in your cafe a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah?
Well, yeah, that's something I can talk about.
I remember the latte and the blueberry tart.
And you have a really clever concept in that your cup of coffee could be either €2 or €6, depending on where it is in the market.
Yes. So the Irish Times was actually very mesmerized by this, trying to explain it to them. They didn't get it. I had to really break it down for them. But in basic terms, is if you're profiting, the coffee is going to cost you less. If you're losing, it's obviously going to cost you more with the Litecoin or Ethereum.
So what about yourself, Shane? In terms of Nash is saying he's earned a little seed fund there from clever investing with crypto. Is it something you've looked at yourself, or what's your own knowledge of cryptocurrency? And I know we were talking about ICOs earlier on. So maybe tell us a bit about that and your own, as a kind of somebody who's not an investor.
Yeah, sure. I suppose I'd be coming from more of a non-technical background, so more of a coffee and impact geek. So it's a steep learning curve for me. But I suppose where I see the benefits of blockchain is the transparency that it brings. That a major part of Fair Chain and our movement is that you should show exactly where your cup of coffee comes from. So the pilot project that started with the coffee harvest in December, you could see live payments coming through as a coffee farmer brought his coffee cherries. Coffee, when it grows on a vine, it's ripe when it's a red cherry. So they were bringing their coffee cherries to a washing station. You could see those live payments and the premium we pay them coming through. So I suppose the obvious extension of that is to have an ICO in the future. We need help. We're looking, this is a call out for help from I know there's a great ecosystem here in Crypto Coast and what you're trying to bring together.
A couple of people in the room.
A couple of people in the room. I'd love to talk to you because we want to, in April, have a QR code on our coffee bags, or maybe in a takeaway cup if Nash takes our coffee. And we'd be able to see the entire supply chain for our customers. So that has amazing benefits. We were chatting earlier that maybe rather than tipping the barista and tipping Nash, we could tip the farmer in Ethiopia.
Precisely, yeah.
And a 10 cent payment goes directly to a digital wallet in Ethiopia. That's incredible. So the impact it can have, the transparency it brings, blockchain really fits in with even things like the sustainable development goals. That land ownership, access to credit, access to payments. So that's what we're trying to do in Moi.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I should mention at this point that there should be no confusion about what Nash is doing. Different entities entirely. Actually, I first saw Nash's cafe on front page of Reddit, BTC. I was one of the Reddit subs anyway, and I was like, oh, crypto cafe, that's cool. And then somebody else reposted later saying, oh, Dublin. I was like, I just assumed it was somewhere else. So for me, it was like a surprising, a nice surprise to see. Somebody having the kind of bravery to get out in the public space, like I said to Sean earlier on.
It is very new for a lot of people, so it's nice to have like a real kind of public-facing sort of business doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Anyone here has any input there? James, you were going to say something earlier on, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm interested in the supply chain side of it. Is that, are you putting everything on the chain, or like how much of those transactions or of the supply chain are you putting on chain?
The idea will be to have all of the transactions. So, I mean, in the coffee production process, there can be whatever 9 to 11 different steps. Yeah. So it goes from farmer to a hulling station to roasting is kind of the 3 central ones that you need to show the value build-up. So the big thing with coffee is when it goes from commodity to being roasted and packaged and branded, there's a massive value build-up. So we want to show that, show the premiums and show the extra impact that we're bringing. So it needs kind of a different token at each stage. So we partnered with Bext360, a US technology company, who developed an amazing machine vision AI robot to analyze the quality of each cherry, pay and mobile payments instantly. So that'll be a little robot we get to use next year.
That's very cool.
And you do a really great job of like communicating the value of coffee. How do you find, as a non-expert, communicating the value of blockchain and of cryptocurrency and stuff to your customers?
Yeah, I suppose maybe it was interesting actually, you talked about earlier, you know, trying to be accessible in terms of blockchain and describing what it is and then not trying to explain it too much. I think because we're dealing with a supply chain, something very practical, when you say, oh, it's showing you who your farmer was or showing you where the coffee was roasted, or that makes it a little bit easier to explain. So I think it helps that it's something really physical and that it's a really everyday thing like a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I think this is part of what we found both through the Blockchain Association and through other ventures. If you start trying to convince people and trying to kind of do the big concept sale on why this should be something that people should, you get into kind of like, I'm selling this idea, and that's not really where I want to kind of spend my energy in the space, is trying to convince people that it's a good idea. I think if you can demonstrate in something that's tangible, you know, that's hugely valuable. People kind of join the dots themselves, and then they'll come to you extolling the benefits of it instead of the other way around. And I think, again, coming back to your example about the retail, if we can demonstrate that cryptocurrency being accepted in retail is something that's practical and makes sense. You know, you're winning people over one at a time, you know.
Exactly. So the cafe is actually also a symbolic meaning towards the same ideology that the Crypto Coast has. So it's not just about being a cafe taking crypto as money, it's about getting our foot through that door to the digital currency future that I think the world will go, and I think we all think will go. Right.
Exactly.
But it's a really lovely idea as well to associate it with something that people use in their everyday lives, which is coffee.
Yeah. So I've heard of plenty of my friends who were into Bitcoin back years ago, but you can't really do much with it, you know. Like you could take maybe, like you're saying on your website you were accepting Bitcoin, but you haven't got that many payments because not many people probably know about it, you know.
That's it, I think, but it's a question of if you can't, it is going to take people to be the first people out there to do it, you know. Personally, I thought it was great. I mean, I loved it. I would prefer to go to your cafe because you understand what cryptocurrency is and you accept it, and there's all the other benefits we know and love about you know, cryptocurrency, keeping it in the ecosphere. And what do you think your next steps are going to be, Nash? Is this the beginning of an empire now, or?
Well, it was a bit of a trial for me at first. You know, being a cafe, it is a business, you know, so there is the basics of business. The whole crypto side of things is a nice little bonus. And just a note there, I'll be accepting Dogecoin soon.
Yeah, exactly. You will be accepting, you're not, eh?
Actually, I have accepted Dogecoin already. So somebody paid me about 790 Dogecoins for a coffee at one stage. But aside from that, really, like we said, the whole idea of the crypto space is one way revolutionizing the fairness of the world, the way it works, the whole decentralized, no regulation, no governing body over what here or what happens with the money that I send to you or you send from Ethiopia over to me that I distribute to then customers. So there's a lot more personal control, I think. Now, whether that's a good or bad thing is debatable. Now, that could end up being a bit of a downfall in our sort of historically.
They can't send us all to prison.
Probably not for the show. Yeah.
Yeah, just me. I'll take it.
Getting very into it. Yeah. So.
Shane, you mentioned that it might make sense at some point to incorporate a token or to do an ICO with Moi. Is that something that's actually on the? Is there something that's white papered for that? I mean, are you looking at? Is it on the roadmap or?
Completely, yeah. So Moi was originally set up by a crazy Dutchman, 6'7" bearded Dutchman called Guido van Staveren.
Oh, 6'7".
Yeah, he's and actually Guido's in Dublin this week. He's looking to meet ICO people. He's looking to chat about that. So. Right. This is the pilot project this year. So next year for the coffee harvest in November and December, we'd love to have it set up, have a fair coin or a coffee coin, and get moving on it.
Fantastic, yeah.
And you were saying that you're the first to do fair chain with coffee. Do you see that trend growing like internationally then?
Completely. I mean, if people joke about millennials and avocados and wanting to know where everything's from, but you know, food provenance is a massive thing people want to know. And when we're going in, we mainly supply workplaces with coffee. When we're going into a tech company, they want to know where the coffee's coming from, and that's got to be the same for chocolate, for bananas, for tea. There's not the transparency there, and like they say, coffee is the largest unautomated industry in the world. So many middlemen, there's so many people taking cut. There's corruption. There's problems with certification. So blockchain offers an ability to cut through all that and say, no, there he is, that was your farmer, this is what we paid him.
I think it's interesting you talk about provenance. I mean, blockchain, if implemented correctly, can add a huge amount of value to Irish and to European exports to those huge markets that are largely untapped. So it's not. I think it's important to say that it's not just coming in from the third world, but it's also exporting then to high value markets abroad. Provenance is massive. Yeah. With Moi, is this something that you think you're going to be taking on the big boys now, or how big are your ambitions?
Well, that's what we like to do. I mean, like coffee is still controlled by about 70% of coffee is still 5 big companies, Nestle being the biggest. I mean, they've got George Clooney. We don't have him, unfortunately. You just have me. But we,
you're Irish.
There's some great independent specialty roasters, and those guys are using direct trade and doing fantastic things. But coffee is still massive companies who are only concerned about making profit and not extracting the best flavor. So since the 80s, there used to be there was a more even spread of value going back, and they've gradually squeezed that out. So we would like to take a hit at big coffee, as we call it. And
but in terms of then, I mean, one part I guess about your process is that you're roasting at source, which kind of flies in the face of modern conventional wisdom about what the best quality coffee is, right? That it should be all just roasted that morning and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's a really interesting debate because, and we love to talk to specialty guys about it because they like, oh, our coffee was roasted 3 days ago, but the green beans took 6 months to get there on a cargo ship, whereas our green beans travel in a truck to Addis Ababa in 7 hours, and they're roasted and we fly with Ethiopian Airways. They're here in 2 weeks. So it is a really good debate. Specialty coffee is best enjoyed within 3 months. We try and get it as quick as we can to customers. But for the majority of people, if you're buying in a supermarket or people who are buying a supermarket ground coffee, they're not concerned about roast date as much. Precisely. And so there's a different market. If you want to be in your cafe, you want to give your customers the best freshly roasted coffee you can, but someone in a supermarket mightn't need that. So that's where there's room, I think, for having it. And
I think as well, just about it, when you're talking about the big groups of people, the big syndicate taking over a lot of the market, where we're going for blockchain, I think, is a lot of interoperability and a lot of different companies and different blockchains and everything be able to talk to each other. And so even if you guys have a market and have that specific market, being able to tap into other blockchains and different supply chains and have it all interact, I think is something that is foreseeable 100% in the future.
And do you worry that the big five at all are going to wise up to the fact that, like, coffee can be better and should be better, and that they might catch on to your ideas and kind of like pull the rug out from underneath you?
Excellent, then we've won. I would love tomorrow if Starbucks go and set up roasteries in the developing world and all the countries they're buying coffee from, rather than trying to trademark coffee regions in Ethiopia, which they tried to do. So that would be a great victory for Fair Chain if they came along and embraced the ideals behind it. We think we can drag them along by showing what can be done to show that coffee can be good, can be fair, and it can be from the country you say it's from, and that's our mission.
So Nash, you, how long before we see Moy coffee for sale?
cafe? Well,
no pressure. So it's all about price point, Shane, right?
That's exactly.
How difficult actually has that been? I'm a fan of yours, obviously. I suppose a bit of myself and Shane know each other going back to playing frisbee together, which it's funny actually.
Of
how
all
many,
things.
Well, you say that, but it's funny how many people I know from the ultimate world that are into crypto as well. Funny enough, yeah. Simon Cocking, if you're watching, world's #1 ICO advisor. So yeah, there's a few of us out there, and I think it's interesting. I mean, the kind of the irreverence, or maybe the kind of there's the spirit of the game that's kind of embodied a bit in what you're doing. That you're doing it for the ethos, or you're doing it for the. I mean, if you wanted to make money out of coffee, this isn't probably the way to go about it. I mean,
there's
you know,
ways, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. So from that point of view, I think the fact that you are striving to do this to improve the industry is hugely admirable. And something that we should all probably get behind. I'm like I say, I'm a fan of yours, but I'm also a fan of the coffee. I'm one of your monthly subscribers, right?
That's right.
Exactly. So I drink it every day, more than once.
Well, that's key to it as well. I mean, if your product doesn't taste good, you can have all the blockchain and fair chain ideals in the world.
Exactly.
So you have to compete on a quality level, and that's kind of why as well, like we use an Ethiopian word and a Mark word, it's moi for the name of the company.
Okay.
It's this mortar and pestle for grinding the coffee, traditional item. So you want to have a different image of the developing world as well, is what we're about.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be an NGO photo of a starving child, it's going to be a modern jazz-loving Ethiopian hipster.
Exactly. Well, this is a huge thing as well. I think for anyone that's been around crypto at all, understands the sort of the benefits, potential benefits for the third world. Say, for example, the whole thing of banking the unbanked, is kind of allowing liquidity or providing liquidity in these markets or these areas that largely get ignored by GDP calculations, or how much does this country produce, how much value does this produce in the world. If you can start recognizing that at source and giving people a tradable or just liquidity as well as at a local level, then suddenly they start feeding into the global economy, and these largely ignored regions can start getting recognized.
Completely, yeah, completely. It's rather the moral issues aside, it's a whole new market of people who don't have land registry, who don't have payments, who don't have access to credit, that you can unlock, and that's revolutionary.
Exploit.
Exploit, or not.
So yeah.
Well, that as well to what Shane said earlier about not everybody is looking for that perfect coffee or the quality but from a trained barista perspective, I teach coffee, and the coffee I had earlier was top of the line.
I couldn't agree more.
For machine coffee, if I made that coffee myself in a barista, I couldn't have made it better.
Yeah,
so,
there you go. So top praise.
That's good. We'll take that.
But listen, guys, thanks very much for coming out.
Thank you.
You're taking a big leap of faith. Obviously, this is our first show, so delighted to have you on board. We'd love to have you back at some point, and we'll keep us updated about your progress and how things are going. Nash will be reading about you in the Forbes magazine, I'm sure. Starbucks is gone. And Shane, no doubt we'll see each other soon as well.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Thanks very much. Big thanks to Coinmetro for sponsoring us through this untested part of our journey. I think it'll be a good partnership as we go forward. Coinmetro went into ICO just the other day, and they have a huge online community, fantastic team behind it, and they're doing really, really well. They've got in excess of, I think, $11 million raised in just a couple of days, so that's fantastic. Also, hats off to Play to Live. A great bunch of guys, fantastic offering, and they're up in the mid-20s now after just a few days of their ICO, so fantastic work from both of them. When we talk about sponsorship, I want to make clear, I guess, at this point about what the idea behind this show is. I kind of say everything is for sale except our opinion. Now, I don't get involved with ICOs unless I believe that they're good projects, so if you hear me bigging up projects I'm involved with, that's a natural thing. I probably because I have more knowledge about them than other projects that are out there. If anyone would like to get involved with sponsoring and get your name out there, be involved in the show in some way, let us know, get in contact. Details will be in the links below. And we can do that in post, can we? Yeah. We can figure that out. Thanks very much.
Good morning and welcome to Crypto AM ICO Review. This is part of the show where we discuss initial coin offerings, or ICOs. Before we go any further, I'd like to clarify that nothing we discuss today should be considered financial, legal or investment advice. Always do your own research. My name is William Weaver. I'm a researcher with Deep Green. This is my colleague.
Hi, my name is Luke Byrne. I'm also a researcher with Deep Green, and we're here today with a special guest from New Zealand.
Hey, so my name is James Waugh. I'm the founder of BlueBlock. BlueBlock's basically a token economics advisory company, and I'm working with a number of ICOs, a lot of them out of Australia. So Kenya, Australia's second largest ICO, I was a big part of their business development and token economics team, as well as working with a number of others.
So one of the biggest problems in the industry today is a lack of common standards in how to carry out an ICO. So we're working in a way to try and help consumers understand some of the fundamentals of this area. Okay, today and in following weeks, we're going to look at companies from a number of different perspectives. Of course, we will look at their particular implementation of blockchain technology and a token, but as Nash alluded to earlier, the ICO culture isn't that much different from startup culture, so we'll be looking at some different aspects of business culture. Today our focus is going to be on a company called Crypto and Cafe, who plan to regenerate the coffee industry with an ecosystem that supposedly will support farmers, traders, roasters and retailers. So one of the most important concepts here is a good product market fit, which can be condensed down to really meaning being in a good market with a product that can satisfy that market. Luke, this is something that we always look out for when we're assessing these companies.
Yeah, so if you have any business, you really want to have a market to fit your product into, because if you don't have a market, you're not going to make any money. If you look at the coffee industry in this case, in 2016, 7.1 billion kilograms of coffee were exported worldwide. But as well as that, 50% of Vietnamese and Indonesian farmers couldn't actually earn enough money to support their living, and that went up to as high as 100% in certain African countries. So when you look at a company like Crypto and Cafe who are trying to solve this issue, they definitely have a market to fit into. They're planning to do it by implementing 5 different products. So there's an e-commerce website, an e-learning hub, a cryptocurrency debit card, a peer-to-peer exchange, and a mobile wallet. These all sound great in theory, but the main issue that I've had with them is that they claim the farmers don't actually have enough money to support themselves, and all of these softwares need hardware. So if you want to run an e-commerce website, you need a computer, you need a laptop, and then if you want to have a mobile wallet, you need a mobile phone. So how are these farmers actually going to buy the hardware to support the software? One other thing that I did notice with these products is that there's no actual network available in a lot of these countries. Again, in the white paper for Crypto and Cafe, they said that these farmers live in mountainous areas that are hard to reach. So if you're in areas where people can't even reach, there would be no Wi-Fi for them to actually access these products.
Of course, another part of having a good product market fit is the necessity of the blockchain and the use of a token. This is something we've talked about a little bit before, James, how the token integrates into the platform and even the structure of the token sale.
Yeah, so I think the token's an important part of every single ICO, obviously. And anyone that's doing a financial transaction, there's an argument to be using a token or a cryptocurrency payment. The problem with Crypto and Cafe is that there's really no need for the token. You can do every single step along the way that they've planned out and the 5 different things they're going to build, and there's no need for the token at any part of that. So that's one part of it, which is a red flag. The second thing is about how the token sale is structured. So Vitalik, one of the founders of Ethereum, tweeted out a few months ago about how any token structure or token sale that's giving a bonus based on the amount you contribute is a huge red flag and we should be staying away from. And that's something that Crypto and Cafe is doing. The more you contribute, the more bonus you get, and that's a big red flag to me as well.
Okay, and obviously when you're assessing the chances of the company succeeding, you don't just look at what the company looks like now, but you try and assess what it might look like in the future. Yeah. So there should be a solid strategy for the company to scale. Okay, this should include a go-to-market strategy, financial model including costs, financial projections. Luke, from what I understand, this is quite an ambitious project.
Yeah, so one of the main issues that I had with Crypto and Cafe is that they have a lot of projected revenue. So by 2020, they projected they'll be turning over $80 million a year in revenue, but they do not have any revenue model. They don't say where that money is going to come from. As well as that, they aim to be one of the top cryptocurrencies by 2020, but the main issue there is that they have no scalability strategy. They don't talk about how they're going to go into different countries and spread their product, because if you think about it, they're targeting people who aren't online. They have to target them in person. They're going to have to go to these countries and spread the word about their product to these farmers. They don't factor in these costs in any way, shape or form. So there's obviously a disconnect between the amount of money they plan to make and how they plan to make it, as well as who they plan to make the money from.
Another thing that probably ties into the viability of a company project long term is an efficient use of funds from the token sale. James, do you think there's any optimal model for this kind of thing, and do you think that if there is, have Crypto and Cafe followed it?
Yeah, so I think there's not just one optimal model. I mean, the whole point of ICO is that there can be a lot of different models that lead to the same success. But I do think that anyone using percentages, straight up percentages in how the use of funds are being used is another red flag. So if people are raising 500,000 or 5 million or 50 million and they're spending 40% on marketing either way, that is another red flag, and that's something that Crypto and Cafe does. So that is something that I'm concerned about. Also from other ICOs, what you see is the use of funds being a little more written out. So instead of just having a percentage, you might have a breakdown of cost if they raise $1 million, a breakdown of cost if they raise 5 or 10, and that giving that more transparent, more opaque look at it, I think is really important.
Luke, another thing that we've discussed quite often is the ability of the team to execute this vision.
Yeah, so when you're looking at any business, you really need to look at the team behind them. Ideally, they should have a diverse experience, diverse backgrounds between them. So there should be people who have experience in business development, people who have a legal background, people who have a technical background, and most importantly, people with experience in the industry. When you look at Crypto and Cafe, the main thing that I see is that they don't have a CEO, they don't have a CFO, all they have are technology advisors, smart contract developers, and ICO advisors. To me, this is a red flag, and maybe it's why there's a disconnect between revenue and revenue model, because they don't have anybody to actually develop their business. All they have is people who can develop their products.
That's another thing I actually noticed. I don't think there's anyone on the team that has the right eye for detail, so to say. For example, in the white paper, there was quite a few spelling mistakes. In the explainer video, they referred to an ICO as an ICO, and for me, the KYC procedure just wasn't really sufficient. James, do you have any more thoughts on this? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that these ICOs that are developing, they're coming out with a white paper. I call it a white paper and a dream, right? So they basically come out with a white paper and they say we want to raise $10 million, $20 million, a bajillion dollars. It doesn't matter, right? Anyone that's coming out with just a white paper and isn't developing technology first is something that I'm really concerned about. Earlier we talked about Moi Coffee and how they're developing the infrastructure and developing a real world solution and technology to solve a problem. And they're looking at that first before they move into the ICO, and I think that's hugely important. I also talk a lot about decentralizing out rather than up. So what you have in the case of Crypto and Cafe is them saying, we're going to do this, 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 this. It's going to be super amazing, super decentralized, and we're going to build it from day one. Now, when a lot of projects get to that stage, and they start building, get halfway up and go, actually, we're going to create a slightly centralized solution, and we can't decentralize every part of that. Versus in a lot of other, maybe more reputable ICOs, they start at the bottom with a centralized product with an already functioning business, and they decentralize out parts of that.
All right, guys, thank you very much for your time. I think that's all we have time for this week. Before we go, I'd like to give a shout out to Coinmetro and Play2 Live, who are working with Ruben Godfrey, and he spoke a little bit about them earlier. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks.
So that's our very first episode of Crypto AM. Ruben, do you have any final thoughts, final remarks on what we've learned today?
Well, I don't know. I think it was pretty good, nice representation of some of the people who are involved in the local and global cryptocurrency sort of scene. Delighted to have our special guest James Wall, who I've worked with on a few projects and looking forward to working on some more. Obviously Moi Coffee, great guys, a fantastic project that they're doing. Nash from Crypto Cafe as well. So this is all part of it. I think it's representative of a young, vibrant ecosystem that's building in Ireland.
And a special thanks to Paddy the dog.
Yeah, Paddy, you little legend, huh? So stay tuned, get in contact if you have any questions, queries, or if you want to tell us what we got wrong. That's what most people do online.
That's what the comment section is for.
Exactly, yeah. Just make personal digs about our appearance, possibly, something like that. Anyone's welcome. So yeah, look forward to the next episode. I think we're going to do is looking at money. What's the future for what we all know and love, the notes and coins in our pockets?
Yes.
Perfect.
And on that note, we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much.